Hello everybody, welcome back to another video where I just talk over a game instead of talking about planners. We'll get to that some other time again, because I always enjoy a good planner or some type of stationary thing. Either way, today I wanted to talk about how people with AuDHD and autism, pretty sure also, and for sure ADHD, will tend to say things that other people somehow do not want to say. Like there's this joke like saying, or not really a joke, more like a meme, like, oh, he said the quiet part out loud, like that type of thing. But why is it a quiet part? Because often I have these situations where I'm just listening to what people are saying, and then I draw a conclusion which is based off what they just said and which I think is like normal. And then I make that conclusion, like I say that out loud, and then people go, oh, there she goes again, or their commentary, oh my god, like that type of thing. Like say you were in a work meeting or something, and they're discussing how they were going to have like a team event, like a little trip to some place, like maybe you're going to a museum or going to a restaurant or whatever, and then the team lead says something about how this or that's going to be an issue, and they're not sure about the timing or whatever it is. And that basically just means that it's probably not going to happen. And then if I were to say something like, oh, well, sounds like we're not going to have our team event then, or something, then it's like, oh my god, here she is again with her commentary, you shouldn't have said that. Like, they don't actually say you shouldn't have said that, but with their reaction, they're telling you that you shouldn't have said that for some reason. Even though anybody who's listening and who has a mind will know that that is probably the most logical conclusion of the story that's just been told. It kind of reminds me of a different situation that I had where a coworker of mine was talking about how they didn't really want to be part of a video shoot that they were going to do, or a photo shoot, something like that, because they were like not very confident about how they looked, etc. Now everybody has this bit of an issue with how they look and how they sound on recordings and stuff like that. So there's always this bit of, oh, I don't really like to see my own photos, like that type of thing. Some people don't mind. Some people are used to how they look, etc. But there are a lot of people who are like, I don't really care what I look like, or I don't really care to look at myself. And it's only going to make the thing worse that you're about to film or take pictures of because I'm in the frame and stuff like that type of joking mentality. So I hear that, and then in my mind, of course, there is all this conclusions being drawn, like, okay, he doesn't really like the way that he looks on a photo or something, but, you know, that's what everybody thinks, and we have Photoshop to kind of like brush things up a little bit, like all the things that he's particularly insecure about, we could maybe fix that somehow, like to make it still look like him, but not bad like that, or at least make it more acceptable in his eyes. So I just say, oh, well, we have Photoshop. And then they start kind of laughing, but not because they're amused, but more like, oh my god, what did you just say type of laughing, like, oh wow, with coworkers like you who needs enemies, that type of what did you just say type of laughing. And while they're laughing, I'm like, okay, I guess it kind of sounds like I'm saying that he's ugly, but also you just said that yourself, so why is it such a shock if I say we have Photoshop, which is actually meant as a positive thing, like, oh, we can take care of your insecurities with Photoshop, instead of me trying to insult them, because actually they already did that themselves. They didn't need me for that at all. So it just kind of confused me, and that's the type of situation where people think that I'm too direct and stuff like that. Even though I'm just kind of saying what is already being said, but I'm like spelling it out. But for some reason people don't want that, and I don't know why. Because it also kind of like hampers progress, and I'm always somebody who wants to go for progress. I don't want to get hung up on things that really don't matter. If I see that we have a goal, I'm going to be working toward the goal, and anything that gets in the way of the goal, I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to at least mention it, so we can maybe process that and then keep moving toward the goal. But it's not just goal oriented, it's also kind of like watching other people around me getting stuck on things, and it's like something that I can definitely point out, but you shouldn't do that because apparently that's rude. But I think it's actually ruder when somebody is basically telling you that you shouldn't tell this other person that they're doing this and that they're doing that, and that they may be better off doing something else which would help them progress. Because by doing that, you're actually stopping this other person from progressing, like being a better person. And sure, there is, of course, this element of, oh, they need to be ready to hear it, that type of thing as well. But if somebody is constantly running into the same wall, why don't you tell them that the wall is there, and that you could also go through the door that's a couple of meters to the left or something like that. They may not immediately want to go through that door. They might run into the wall a couple more times. But you've already planted that seed, and then eventually they will go a couple meters to the left to go through the door instead. And then they've kind of progressed and they can move on to the next wall, like that type of thing. And this type of thing also makes me wonder if maybe the neurotypical people are actually the ones that are kind of making communication difficult, because we just kind of say, like, we being AuDHD, ADHD, autism type people, we just tell it as it is, and it seems like the most forward way to do things, like the most straightforward way to communicate, seems most practical as well. Just say what it is. It's kind of like if you're sitting in a car and the car doesn't have any gas and the person behind the wheel wants to talk about anything else, but maybe windshield wipers need replacing. Oh, maybe actually you need to dust the interior, or maybe actually to clean these seat covers. And you're sitting there going, well, actually it's because there's no gas in the tank. You can see it on the meter, and everybody around you goes, oh my God, you shouldn't have said that. Oh my God, why did you say such a thing? And you're always so direct, you're always so rude, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, we're still sitting in this car that's not going anywhere. That's kind of like the issue that I have with the way that neurotypicals communicate. We could have gone so much farther, so much faster, if we were just kind of like more direct about these things. And if we also did not connect so much emotions and personal worth to other people's words as well. Like the other day, I was watching an episode of some series where they took a bunch of people, they sent them on holiday, and they had to do some chores together and stuff like that. And one person was not feeling it, so they went and did something else. They actually wanted to rest a little bit longer that morning, and then the host of the show goes up to her and goes, oh, well, now that you're resting, the other people will have to do everything without you. And he didn't really say it in like an accusatory tone. It was more like matter of fact, like, oh, well, if you're going to go rest, then I guess the rest has to do it without you. And in a moment, the other person goes, okay, yeah, I guess. And then about half an hour later, the host goes and checks in on her again, and she's in this whole negative spiral because he had said that now that she was going to take a break, that all the others would have to do the work without her, and oh my God, I've had this type of thing thrown at me all my life, and everybody calls me lazy, and la la la. Like this whole story has started to like go like in her head like a merry-go-round. And nobody actually said directly to her, like, oh, you're lazy. Really, if you look at what was actually said, it was just like, oh, if you're going to go take a break, then the others have to do the work without you. So instead of 9 people clearing up a bunch of branches, there's 8 people clearing up a bunch of branches. And it's not like the 8 people were sitting there constantly going, oh my God, this is so much harder now that she's not helping us out. She's such a terrible person. She's so lazy. She's so this, she's so that, blah, blah. They were just doing the thing. And if she then decides to make a huge deal out of that in her head by involving all these emotions and, I don't know, morals, values, whatever it is, judgments, whatever it is that came up in her head, other people do not have an influence on what's going on inside of her head. So the whole negative spiral is basically caused by what's going on in her head. And if we could just not do the whole negative spiral whenever somebody says something, easier said than done, I know. What would have happened would have been the following. Okay, so the host says to the person, okay, well, if you're going to go take a break or go do something else, that means that the others are going to have to do the chore without you. And then person B says, okay. And person B goes to have their break. They hang out in a little lounge chair for a while, whatever it is that they wanted to do, have a little mini nap. And they come back half an hour later and they have some energy and they can now also help out with the chore, or maybe not. Maybe the chore is done and they just move on to the next thing. Everybody's fine. That's all that would have happened. But because of the whole negative spiral that came up from the person themselves, it turned into a whole ordeal. And I see that type of thing in more or less the same intensity all around me most of the time, where people take things that are just said neutrally, basically. If you just look at the content of the message, which I know is only like 7% of what people actually process about when other people are talking to them, because most people rely on body language and tone of voice, which is not actually the message. Sometimes that's important to look at that as well, but if you really just look at the message and really only process that and react to that, things would be a lot simpler. And I think that's also a good way to deal with bullies, because bullies often like to work with a lot of heavy subcontext, whatever you call that. Subtext, I think is what it's called. Like they'll say something that sounds innocuous, but then they have this whole thing that's writing underneath the message. But if you ignore that entire thing, you can just go, oh, I'm not doing this. Okay, well then I'll start doing it from now on. And then the rest will be water off a duck's back, and we can just keep moving. Just stoically accept the message, process, move on, like that type of thing. I think that would help a lot. And the bully as well would probably eventually get bored. That's also how I dealt with a lot of bullies in school as well. Just kind of like deal with everything at face value and just move on. Don't get excited, don't get angry, don't react. So I think it would also help in that regard, at least somewhat. It would be a lot less enjoyable for bullies if you just kind of dealt with everything matter of fact, took their messages at face value and just moved on without giving too much of an emotional reaction, because that's kind of what they're looking for anyway. But okay, aside from that, I think if we just kind of process things as they were, said things when they need to be said, don't hide the context, just say the quiet parts out loud, I think it would progress a lot faster. It would make things so much easier, so much simpler to understand, and so much more efficient. So those are my thoughts on the quiet parts and how they should be said out loud. Let me know your experience with this type of thing. And if you're neurotypical, I'd like to hear your thoughts about this as well. Like, why is it so much more important to have all these feelings rather than just process what's actually being said and then moving on? So that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed that and hope to see you in the next video. Thanks for watching and bye-bye for now.